Some people you just get excited to be around. And Bill Snow is one of those people. He's done a phenomenal job of creating a committed social following. He's also got a way of brightening up most people's day without blowing sunshine where the sun normally does not shine. That being said, if you want to learn more about how Bill has built multiple brands with a really engaged following, you're going to want to stick around. Stay tuned. So, Bill, you mentioned that you have to make a lot of noise to get attention, which I love. Other than an RX-7 race car, I wouldn't consider you to be a particularly noisy guy. How have you approached, you seem to have mastered this art of being noisy without being loud, whether it be on social media or in a room. People know who you are, but you're not the guy screaming in the corner or anything like that. Has that been intentional? How do you master this?
Oh my gosh, yes. If you want to get noticed at the track, bring an RX-7.
I love it.
It's funny you mention that because I just got back from a conference and we're having lunch and I'm sitting at a table. I don't know anybody and it's automotive related. And at one point they stop and they say, Bill, because we have badges on, Bill, you haven't said anything. I said, I know, I'm listening. I'm learning from you. And I've kind of taken the same approach in branding and social media is you can create a buzz, but you don't need to be the loudest person. You don't need to be the most person that takes over the conversation. Just communicate, build content about what you're doing, how you're doing it, what you want people to be, to know about your brand, and just be consistent with it. And that's the noise you create.
Interesting. I like that. So just that consistently showing up is a big piece of that. Because that's something that, beautiful segue into my next question. It's like I've planned this or done research. You're super consistent in so many cases, especially like with your personal social media and your personal brand on that. What are some of the biggest lessons you've learned about in ensuring that consistency? And you're not only consistent, but you're consistently good. And what's a way that you've said, okay, look, what do I need to do in order to stay at least this baseline level and yet still do it consistently?
There's a couple things. And a few years ago, I learned the first trick. Just capture the pictures, the content, the video, and figure out what you're going to do with it later. So many people just are like, all right, I'm here, I'm eating. Let me take the pic. Let me post what I'm eating and doing. No. Take the pic, put the phone down, and then figure out how you use it later. The other part is if you're doing things for your brand and your business, think about that next event. Think about that next meeting or that next conference. What do you want people to know of you doing ahead of that, during, and then after, and plan your content that way. So you might want to let people know you're attending so you can start to get some meetings going. But then you don't need to post the whole time you're there because you want to be immersive and pay attention to everything. But then capture content during that. So on your trip home or your first day back in the office, you can make a video or a post about that. When you're a little bit more intentional and you come up with a plan, it's a lot easier to be consistent. And don't think it has to be done every day. A couple times a week. As long as it's good quality and you're consistent with it, that's what you want to do.
It's interesting you say that. Really, it's the intentionality behind it. Because in so many cases, and I even catch myself all the time, I take the picture, post it, and just how do you make sure that you do post it? Because a lot of cases I've scrolled through like the photos on my phone and I'm like, oh yeah, I should have posted that.
A little bit is time management. So, for example, there's a couple days a week I work out with my daughter, sometimes both daughters, and I will always post a story of the two of us working out. And they know that that's coming. They know we're going to take the picture. The people we work out with as well know that we're going to be taking the picture and posting it. And so I kind of have that built into my morning routine. Now, yesterday, my daughter didn't show up. She said, hey, I'm still sore from the other workout. I'm not coming. Well, I didn't post because I got out of that routine. But later I found an opportunity. That's right. I got to make a post. Once you get into that routine and it's part of your day, it's part of what you do, it's part of your week, it'll come to you. And even if you miss it, you'll still find an opportunity to get it done. And it doesn't have to be a 10-minute endeavor. post, think, look for, trending hashtags, and hashtags are becoming less and less important as time has gone on, and then just do it.
So you are looking at some of the hashtags and what's trending in a lot of cases with stuff like that.
Yeah, mostly looking at other things in the industries I'm interested in.
Sure.
What are those accounts, those high performing accounts, or the brands that we want to emulate? What are they using? And then sometimes it'll even suggest. I think this happens in TikTok. Sometimes it'll suggest, hey, these are some trending hashtags.
Makes sense. You've said you like to look at what gets your attention and then replicate it. And I've seen where you've done some of that. And it kind of, another guest I've had on recently said, history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. And I've seen you rhyme a lot of stuff. I guess I would ask, what are some of your favorite examples that you've seen recently where you're like, oh, I need to do that?
Oh, we just did one. Everything's not a 2-person job.
I saw that.
Yeah, so we did that one. And I sat down with a gentleman that helps record some videos. We sat down yesterday to do some things. And I didn't realize this, but I had made a POV, you're playing social media manager for the day. And I recorded.
That one was great. I love that one.
That has over 533 likes on YouTube, 18,000 views. And I had no idea. And somebody had even said earlier in the week, hey, I saw a video of you like rolling a tire. What was that about? Well, that was that.
Yeah.
So what you think, this is funny, what you think might not resonate with people or make them laugh or get your brand across is exactly what will. So I always thought, I got to be telling people what we're doing. I got to tell them about our services, our products, our specials, whatever. They want to be entertained. And the minute you can get out of that serious box, out of the 4 walls that you sometimes are, professional and proper in, you step away from that and you build something that engages them, makes them chuckle, makes them think, makes them smile. That's where the memory comes along. So I'm constantly looking for goofy ways of what can we do next? And if you look at some of our social media, just on Atomic Autosports, you're seeing that kind of come into that where it's less about, hey, we just put these, Continental tires on these Apex wheels. And it's more about everything's not a 2-person job.
That was amazing. As soon as I saw that one, I was like, oh, this is good. Yeah. When you see 2 technicians using the same torque wrench, you're like, that is awkward. That is 2 of them carrying the same wheel. I'm like, okay, that's just wasteful. But 2 people using the same torque wrench, I'm like, that is awkward. And just the fact that they both creepily smiled while doing it, I'm like, oh, brilliant. I loved it.
I'm lucky that I have team members that want to do this kind of stuff.
For sure. Oh, for sure. I mean, to me, I guess, is it they want to do something like that, or is that part of your culture, do you think?
For most of our employees, it's part of the culture. Now, I do have some employees that are like, I don't want to be on video.
No, thanks.
I'm not comfortable. I can be in the background, but don't put me on the spot. Don't ask me to do something. But, it's one of those things that we've been doing it. When they go to the track with me and they're taking their cars or, maybe we're racing the neons, they recognize that people see that and they're like, hey, I saw that video you guys made, or, oh, wow, it's so funny that you guys, butchered this. For a while there, we were joking around. We'd post pictures of the car and call it the wrong type of car. So it could be a C5 Corvette, but we refer to it as a Miata. Hey, another Miata's in the shop. Well, at first glance, you're like, no, that's not very professional. But then people say, hey, I liked how you made, you compared your C5 to a Miata.
It's an 8-cylinder Miata.
Yeah.
You've obviously not been afraid to put yourself on camera. I believe that might be a bit of an understatement even. Especially your social media manager video. That was 100% poking at you, and I absolutely loved it. If someone's afraid, tentative, worried about it, what would you tell them about getting on camera?
It's easier than you think. It gets easier as time goes along, and you just have to force yourself to do it. I just heard about this. There's some sort of challenge out there. I forget the proper name. And it basically challenges marketers, business owners, people engaged in the community to record 1 video a day and post it. And you don't need microphones. You don't need tripods. You just got to hit the other camera, put it towards you, and start recording. And when you do that for 30 days or 31 days, whatever's in the month, you're going to realize, okay, it only took me a few minutes. I have people asking about it. I have people laughing and engaging with me on social about it, then it's like, yeah, I can do this. And at the end of the day, let's say we're talking to someone that's a business leader or a sales maker or business owner. They want to buy from people, right? I'm not buying automotive service. I'm not buying a new computer. I'm not buying a microphone. I'm buying from somebody. When they see how genuine you are on camera, that's somebody I want to do business with. That's where it really comes together.
So, I mean, that was kind of going to be my next question to that. Do you feel that since you spend so much time on video, that in a lot of cases that it has bridged that gap for some people, that they come in and they know you right off the bat?
Yep. So on the business side, what we want to be able to do is anything that we're putting out socially or digitally, we want that to match what happens when they come into the store, for example. So if they see the service manager or somebody in our store that's in video, whether it's funny or informational, and then they actually come in and they see that person, that's a connection, right? These guys are authentic. They're real. We're making the connection. The other thing is, suppose you don't have a store or a retail front, but you're creating good content. The next time that you're at a networking event or you're at a sales presentation and they can make that connection of, yeah, I've seen that video. Now that person's here and they're the real deal. One last thing on this. If you're putting out regular content, let's use LinkedIn in a professional environment, and you're just kind of putting updates about yourself, your product, whatever the case might be. When you walk into a networking event, it makes it that much easier because more than likely that person has seen that video. Hey, tell me more about that. Or man, that was funny that you were there. Or wow, what was Orlando like at the conference? It breaks the ice and it gives the other person an easy way to start conversation with you.
It's funny you say that because one of the stories that I tell sometimes when I speak was when I had the videos that I did with the truck company where I sold the trucks with them. Someone just walks in, random truck driver just walks in, sits down. He's like, "Hey, Josh, how's it going?" He is my best friend. I am looking at him like, do I need to call security? He 100% thought he knew me. Mm-hmm. I mean, he did in many ways. But he came in, sat down like we were old friends. And I was like, oh, my gosh.
That's awesome.
You've often said produced is better than perfect. I wasn't even done with that. And I can see you nodding like,
sure.
I know where he's going with this. How do you balance that?
There's a certain, the best business plan in the world or the best plan in the world means nothing unless you start it. And it's the same with what information you're going to be producing, whether it's a podcast or a video or even a blog post or a social media post. Just get it out there. Nobody expects it to be perfect. If it is too perfect, someone's going to say it's AI generated. They're going to say it was written by a copywriter. Again, it all comes back to being authentic. So, and you're going to get better with time. So let's say you are making videos. The first ones, they're not going to be the best, right?
You don't think?
You're going to be cut off here. You're going to hear the
it's
traffic
gonna be your social
in the background.
It's your social media manager video. Yeah. It's going to be all of that.
Yes. Yeah. You're going to have the wrong content, the wrong this, the wrong that. But as you start getting more comfortable with it and it gets a little bit easier, you're going to learn from it. You're going to watch it again. You're going to see the interactions with people and you're just going to make it a little bit better. Nothing to be afraid of.
I love that. You've also talked about like being involved with a number of different projects at the same time. There's a couple of businesses, 3, 4, carry the one that you may be involved in. You also may have a couple of projects going on at the same time. Just before we came on, you mentioned a bathroom project that's going on with a guy that has any sort of race car or performance vehicle. There's always a project. It is never done. It is never actually done. You've also said that you're wired to do everything, but you've had to learn how to prioritize. What was that turning point for you? Because I know that, as we're working with you on some social stuff and things of that nature, you've obviously said, okay, I need to prioritize some of this out of my life, but I want to make sure that I'm still doing this stuff. The personal stuff you're still doing is awesome. Where's the turning point for you? What is the red flag that comes up that says, I need to change how I do this and I need to prioritize some stuff differently?
when there's more stuff you want to do and you can't say yes because there's already so much stuff that you're committed to and that in some cases we're not even getting done. So somebody just recently told me this. Where's your next big check coming from? Think about that. So who wrote you the last big check? And where's your next big check coming from? Because that's what you want to be able to focus in on. So, is it posting a goofy video of just me on my personal, or is it getting 18,000 views on a goofy social media post on YouTube where someone says, maybe that's a place I want to take my car. Maybe that's the next person that's drawing in. A lot of us are wired that we want to do it all. We want to be at every networking event. We want to do 10K SAB. We want to speak at, all the chamber events. We want to network here and that. If we did all that stuff, we would never get our business done. So you really got to take a step back. What's going to drive that next big check? And that's where I need to focus. And it's not necessarily just one thing. It could be multiple things across your different entities, but making sure that that's where your focus needs to be and the execution matches that to get the result.
Nice. I like that. It's all about that intentionality and thinking about what actually does matter.
Yeah. And I'll give you a great example. I skipped the networking event last night that I was really looking forward to.
Same.
Yes. Yeah. See? And that was a tough decision because I signed up for it. I told some people I was going to be there. And then I looked at my desk. And I also have an RX-7 that needed to be put back together. And so the reward of being able to work on the RX-7 was to get my desk done. But there was one thing on my desk that needed, it's a form we use inside the business. And we need to start using it again. It's a maintenance checklist. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to be responsible for this anymore. I have a team and I'm going to forward this onto this team right now and say, gentlemen, between the two of you, you figure out how we get this done each week. Now, that's delegation. We're all very bad delegators, those of us that are just in business. But just a simple task like that, it's out of my head, it's off my desk, and now it'll get done because that's what those folks are paid to do.
Sure.
And we have to make decisions like that. What can I delegate that lets me focus in on the things that are going to drive that next big check?
That makes sense. That 100% makes sense. Going to the automotive side of things, there's a quote here that I have to read that you gave me. In the automotive space, we are dealing with the most complex consumer purchase, and we have the most complex thing God created. It can either be the most fun or the most frustrating career you choose. You mentioned that your dad is kind of who got you into cars. Mm-hmm. Similarly, my dad is who got me into cars, and he was recently a guest on the Late to Grid podcast. Yes. We'll have to link that one in the show notes. Your quote, it says it could be the most fun or most frustrating. Which is it?
Depends on the day. So we are dealing with complex cars.
Sure.
Complex, when we say the most complex human thing created or God created, it's the human that has emotion. And we need to, whether you're dealing with a client or customer, or you're dealing with the person that your team member that's fixing the car or figuring out what's wrong to fix it. We have to manage all that. And then what we're working on is a very complex vehicle, especially today's computerized vehicles that have more wire than they ever did, have more computers and modules than they ever did. Some cars get fixed by software updates now, just like a phone or tablet. So as long as everything's working fine, it is so much fun. And there's actually a way we can influence that, and that's by having a proper plan. So all the problems we deal with come down to basically one thing, and that's communication. So if we order a part that gets delayed, somehow the communication didn't work, whether it was us, the way we ordered it, whether it was the receiving company that didn't understand the order, didn't ship it, or if it was delayed, didn't let us know. So as long as we can manage the communication, it is a phenomenal industry to be part of. I love talking about what we do. I love meeting with other folks in the automotive industry. I love meeting with and talking to the youth that want to get involved in automotive. And as long as we put together the right plan and we communicate, it is a blast to be involved in each and every day. And at the end of the day, and I got this from my mother, we're not delivering babies, right? We're fixing cars. It's not a big deal. It can be fixed. If a man built it, we can fix it. So, Yeah. So the last part of that is keeping it in perspective.
I love that. That 100% makes sense. Speaking of perspective, I mean, I have a little bit of history in the automotive world. I mean, I was figuring it out the other day. A total of like 14 years in the automotive between the performance side and the. So I know what some of that pleasure and pain is both like. I've also realized how quickly that has changed and is changing. When you look at cars of 15, 20 years ago, when we finally got fuel injection, 20, 25 years ago, to now the variable valve timing, the electric water pumps, so many things have just changed so much in it. The same thing, I guess I would say, would be true of marketing, especially as AI becomes more readily used and things of that nature. You're a highly motivated guy, but what actually keeps you motivated to keep up with both of those things? Because they're very complex and they're very fast changing. That's got to be a ton of effort. How do you do it?
Well, on the changing technology side, we have to learn, we have to absorb what's happening. And sometimes we might not see it in the automotive aftermarket for several years. So ADAS technology comes out, advanced driver assistance system. So that's your backup camera, that's your lane departure, your automatic cruise control, how it adapts. The repairs on that we didn't see right away because a lot of that stuff would go back to the dealer during the warranty period. So we have a nice lead time to learn about those things. How do they work? How do they get repaired? Can we even service them? What equipment do we need to service them? How do we train our folks to do that? And then on the marketing side, when you watch your competition and they're coming up with the creative videos or the great brand messaging or some new whiz-bang feature service that they're offering, you don't want to be left behind. And I always say we don't have competitors in our space because there's enough cars to work on. But you do want to be the best. So what can we do to learn what's happening, what's doing something different going to get for us? And back to the consistency of making the videos and just doing it, do the same on the marketing side. We flipped our social media this year on the radar side of things. We're doing some off-brand goofy videos, and they're really starting to come out, we're entering fall here. They're really starting to come out now and through the end of the year. There's some people that might say, that's different. Not edgy, just
right.
Goofy, funny, maybe a little bit off-brand. If that gets a couple extra eyeballs and we think differently about it, why not? And if it doesn't work, we won't do it again. And we'll fire somebody.
What do you feel like, and looking at general business, what do you feel are some of the key factors that have made you successful in what you've accomplished as of this far?
One word, people.
Love it.
Take care of the people. Without people, we don't have a business.
Sure.
And without people, we don't have clients or customers. So we really have to take care of people. And, there's a lot of people will talk about empathy, but until you actually use that and it's part of your day and it's part of your routine, and it's part of the way you work with people, once you understand empathy or your team understands it and implements it and uses it, it's a game changer. And we should always be putting our team members first. One of the things I've always been big on is celebration. We celebrate birthdays. We celebrate work anniversaries. If there's some personal successes, we celebrate those as a team. We have professional wins in our organization. We celebrate those too. Celebrating a birthday is a gift card and a nice ice cream cake. But we bring the team together and we sit down for a while. Engaging the team that way helps. Leading by example helps. Without strong people, no business owners would be where they were. Interesting.
Love that. You've also said that life is all about expectations. I heard a quote before that said, unspoken expectations are future regrets.
Oh, gosh.
I heard that and I had a similar reaction to that. Your life being all about expectations, how does that guide you in your work? And then flip that too, how does that guide you in the marketing?
Yeah. So when we communicate expectations, we set the specifics we want to have happen. So, for example, I talked about delegating that weekly checklist. I told them this needs to be implemented next week and it needs to be updated weekly. There's a clear expectation of when it has to be because the email is timestamped, right? And then how often it needs to be implemented or used. That's a very clear expectation. And there was a link to the form, so there's no question what form we're going to do. And if we approach that in every aspect of our life, professionally and personally, what could go wrong? Right, something could. but really, it's the same thing. My wife will say to me sometimes, "Oh, I thought you would have done that while I was gone." Well, why? We haven't talked about that. I'm a male. I might see that there, but I don't know that I'm supposed to do anything with it. But if she had said on the way out, "Hey, I'll be back at 4," is there a way that you could paint the wall or put the dishes away or whatever?
Right.
Now there's an expectation. I better have that done before she comes back. I can goof off, but as long as it's done before then. And it's the same, you asked about marketing and setting expectations. Do you mean from the consumer perspective, the person?
Yeah. So
yeah.
How are you setting that for what they should expect when they walk in the door?
Yeah. So this comes down to something I call everything matters.
Oh, I like that.
Everything we do matters. So your marketing message needs to speak to your consumer, your customer, your client. And when they engage in it, it has to match. So what I mean is the parking lot clean? If you say, "Hey, we operate the cleanest business in town," when they show up, is it the cleanest business? We make it easy to do business with. Is it? If they show up, are they being greeted? Is everything right? We offer free loaner cars at Radar. Well, if someone expects it, do they get it? We have to deliver as business owners. We have to deliver what we say we're going to do. It comes down to warranties or whatever
Sure.
is part of your offering. It has to work as good as or better than what you promise. And there's one quick thing I want to say on this too. There's no doubt prices on everything are more expensive. Everything has gone up. But the customer experience hasn't changed much. So now I'm paying a lot more and I'm getting the same experience, which means I might not be as happy as I once was spending the money for this. And that could be eating out to dinner, going to Home Depot and buying stuff, getting your car repaired, going to a baseball game, whatever. What can we as people in business do to bridge that gap? And that's value. The price I pay versus
Sure.
what I get, what can we do to close that value gap?
That's a really interesting point. So, I mean, you guys have always strived for that customer service. Have you said, look, we need to be even more intentional about that in terms of recently with that, making sure that gap gets closed a little bit?
Yeah. Simple things as to just communication. When nothing is more frustrating when you drop your car off to get serviced.
And did I drop it off to the abyss?
Right. I haven't heard anything. It's 4:30. They close at 5:30. What's going on? Just making sure those regular update calls happen. We use a lot of text messaging in our organization now. So I can text you an inspection. I can text you an estimate. You can do things and interact through texting, actually approve things too. That offers some value because let's say, for example, your Volkswagen was in the shop right now and the technician or service manager is trying to get a hold of you. You can't answer.
Right.
But you might be able to look at your phone and type something and say yes. Explaining everything that was done. So when you pick up your vehicle, as an example, not just sign here, thank you. It's let me explain everything we did. Let me explain the warranties to you. Let me explain what we had to do to get here. So you really understand why am I paying this amount of money to get this done? And then what else can you do? We always top off fluids and tire pressures, but maybe that license plate is only hanging on with one bolt. Well, let's put another bolt in there. Maybe that windshield is super dirty on the inside. Let's wipe that off. Might not be able to do it every time.
Sure.
But you do those little extras. And you don't have to brag about it. Hey, by the way, we took care of this. And that good experience should close that value gap.
Interesting. Because, there's many times where I've been someplace and you get in the vehicle afterwards and you're like, oh, that's what the road actually looks like when the window's been wiped down. You're
yes.
like, that's actually what it looks like. You've always tried to give back, even through some of the stuff that you say. You try to help motivate people. You try and give them this level of accountability. You're like, hey, I got out and ran today. You don't sit there and be like, why haven't you? But you give that accountability. Where does that piece come from in terms of the trying to motivate others?
I don't know where it started, but I'm a big believer in if we can make other people around us better, we will in turn be better. Sure. And I always feel, I kind of feel bad as I'm saying, hey, I just got back from a run or I went cycling or kayaking or something. But I do it because I want to let folks know that there's time to do all this stuff. There's ways to make you a better person. Maybe someone sees it and says, actually, I'll take a great example. I was working at my home office years ago and I pick up my phone and it's on a weekend and I start scrolling and I see Dale Earnhardt Jr., who's a NASCAR driver, just posted he got back from a bike ride. So he really got into road cycling, him and Jimmy Johnson. And I saw that and I thought, what am I doing here working? I put that down. I suited up and I don't remember if I went for a run or a ride, but I did. I got out and I did something because I saw something else and that just gave me a little bit of motivation. I wasn't disciplined enough to do it on my own. Sure. But I saw that and I was like, yeah, I got to go out and do that. So if we can just help everyone around us be a little bit better, inspire them or nudge them or be like, hey, I'm having fun. You're not. Maybe that fear of missing out says, you know what, I'm going to go out for a run too.
I love that. Absolutely love that. What do you feel is the next step for Late to Grid? I see the look on your face like, because that's the podcast we've been working together on. You've had that for quite some time. We've just started collaborating on it. It's been a ton of fun for me just to have see the guests that you're having in and stuff like that. Plus, I get to sit here and listen to you talk about racing stuff. Not a bad day. What do you feel is some of the next steps or what's the next development for you with something like that?
Yeah. So with your help sort of realized, the original intent of the podcast was just to share stories of everyday people getting on track. How did they do it? Where did they start? Who helped them? What can I learn from them? And one of the things I love is the business side of motorsports. And I started to sprinkle some of that in and realized that it was kind of migrating a little bit towards that, the business side. So we're going to bring it back to the average Joe or Jane getting on track and sharing those stories. Now I'm going to sprinkle in some industry experts to help us along, but that's really going to be the focus. And I mentioned to you earlier, someone said, hey, are you still recording those? I haven't seen one in a few weeks. And yeah, we did slow down on the recordings. You talk about giving some things up, to make decisions. And that's kind of what happened over the summer. But as you know, we're recording a bunch more. We're going to hit the ground running in Q4 and then into 2025. But one of the things I'm looking at too is what additional content can I create that helps folks with their racing career? Awesome. So that could be digital courses that help them secure sponsorships. Maybe it's a spin-off podcast or digital course that helps them understand how to use data better. And some of this stuff is out there, but it doesn't necessarily speak to the same listener we have.
Sure. It's not always geared towards that person that's just trying to figure it out.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but more consistent, more people that are going to share their motorsports journey with the goal of helping someone take that next step from maybe just listening to signing up to do an HPD event.
That's very, very cool. Bill, I want to thank you for coming in today. Thanks for the time. There were 2 podcasts you recorded before this. We'll put links to those also. Those were great.
Thank you.
This was a ton of fun. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
For all of those out there that are watching and or listening, Bill's obviously got, first off, a unique story and just a very focused direction on a lot of things. And to me, that's something that a lot of people are missing in both their marketing and the podcast that is associated with their marketing. So take some lessons from this. And as always, do me a favor, take care of yourself. And if you can, take care of someone else. We will see you soon.